Welcome to this session where we are having a live session. This is a part of the patent drafting for beginners, and I am Professor Feroz Ali, and this is being streamed to you from IIT Madras. So, as a part of the course, we have this open live session. Feel free to put any question that you may have in the forum. You can post your comments on the forum, any question that you may have so far in the course. And I have my colleagues who are watching the forum. They will be able to cut and transfer the questions onto a Google document, and I'll be presenting the questions along with the clarifications to the extent I can possibly do in a forum like this in the course of this live cast. So before we do that, I have a couple of things to discuss in this session. One, we will be looking at some of the questions you have raised in the past, largely questions that have been raised in the forum. We'll be looking at that, and I'll be trying to explain certain things and put things in the right perspective. That's one thing which I would like to do. And in the meantime, while that is being done, I would request you to come up with the questions you have so far had. Could be questions, clarifications, or things that you want to or more light on some topic which you didn't completely understand. It could also be a request to make it could also be a request to make another video or say a topic that needs to be covered in some depth or detail. It could be anything. So free feel to interact. The way in which you would do that is to post your questions as they are happening right now on the forum. I have people who are watching the forum, and that will be communicated back to me. So the first thing is we will cover a set of questions you have asked. I will try to give you, though some of them have been answered in the forum, we will try to cover them in some detail here. The second thing which I would like to do, the second thing I would like to do is to show you a patent specification for a very interesting invention, and take you to what we had done before. We had done this in the context of the combo pen. Do a similar thing for you to understand this entire course. What did we do in this course? We tried to get a disclosure. We tried to convert that disclosure into a problem solution statement. We worked on the problem solution statement to draft a claim, and then from the claim we were able to draft the description or the descriptive part of the specification. So we would go through the process, but the process will not involve looking at an IDF or an invention disclosure form, because there simply isn't any IDF that we can discuss here. We would rather look at a patent specification of a granted patent and try to do this analysis. So this will help you in understanding how patents are drafted. So we look at a drafted or a granted patent and try to kind of reconstruct it, or rather, if you want to use the right word, try to work around it and see how that came into being. So that's the second thing we would like to do. After answering a couple of questions which you have already raised, we do an analysis of a patent specification. That's the second thing. The third thing is I will be introducing you to a workbook. This is a workbook which will give you quite a lot of traction in understanding this course. All the principles that you have learned in this course can be put into practice using that workbook. The workbook, which the link to the workbook will be shared soon by my colleagues, and you can download the workbook and you can start solving the exercises there. So what I would do in this session, in the latter part of the session, the third part of the session, is to introduce the workbook to you and to let you know how the workbook can be used. After that, if there is time and if you have questions and if you have raised some new questions on the forum, I would like to answer them, provided we have the time and provided the questions are of such a nature that we can answer them in a forum like this. So we begin with the questions you have so far asked in the forum. We call it the patent drafting for beginners Q&A. The first question, there are certain things that you had asked pertaining to certain administrative issues on how to log in, how to find certain stuff on the thing. We have not we will not be discussing those things. That you can anyway ask them on the forum and get the answers. But these are more on the substantive things that we had covered in the course. Some of them don't pertain to drafting. There are general patent law issues, but I'm just taking them up and answering them. Can board games be patentable, or can board games be patented? Again, I've just reproduced the question in the way in which you have answered it. So if the questions are not do not make complete grammatical sense, probably that's the reason behind it is I didn't edit them. So can board games be patentable? No. Board games cannot be patented because a method of playing a game cannot be patented under section 3M of the Act. Now that is the short answer. But can toys be patented? Definitely yes. So it depends on what you are trying to cover in your patent. If your patent is going to cover a method of playing a game, which is a process claim, or what we had discussed as a method claim, it certainly will not qualify for a patent grant, because claims for a method of playing a game are prohibited under the Patents Act section 3M. But if you want to cover the apparatus or the product, which is the toy or the game board itself, then it can be patented, provided it satisfies the conditions of patentability. Next question. A patent was granted to penicillin. Can drugs be patented? Yes, drugs can be patented like any other invention. It should satisfy the criteria of patentability. Now we refer to the 4 conditions of patentability. We refer to the 3 positive conditions, that the invention should involve, should be novel, it should involve an inventive step, and it should be capable of industrial application. These are the 3 positive criteria, or the positive conditions. The negative condition is that the invention should not fall within the exceptions. Exceptions contained in section 3 and 4, exceptions to patentability. So this is together what we refer to as the 4 conditions. There was a change in the law, because before 1995, before India became a party to the WTO, the World Trade Organization, and before India became a signatory to the TRIPS agreement. TRIPS refers to trade related aspects of intellectual property rights. The TRIPS agreement is a part of the WTO regime. Before India became a party signatory to it, we had only process protection for pharmaceuticals and drugs. So I can understand this question being asked. The law was different before 1995. Now it's the same as any other invention. So earlier, before 95, you could have a protection, a patent protection, only for a process of making a drug. The product itself could not be patented because the law did not allow for such patents to be granted. The next question is on the Invention Disclosure Form, or the IDF. And we had mentioned the IDF in various parts of our courses. We have said how to get a disclosure from the IDF. So somebody had this question. Is there a dedicated form given by IPO for Invention Disclosure Form? What is the form number? Now, there is a part in patent drafting which has to be done in-house, which has to be done by the person who is drafting the patent, or which is the part if you take the analogy of cooking, there is quite a lot of cutting, chopping, and cleaning that needs to be done before you present a dish on the table. So try to understand that. What we refer to as IDF, the problem solution statement, creating a draft claim, working backwards from the claim, filling in the specification, is all the pre-filing work that you would do, which is not presented before the patent office. Just how you will not present the process of making a dish before the customer who is there in a hotel to have a dish. Similarly, we don't present the pre-work material, the work that went before preparing it, before the patent office. For this precise reason, the patent office does not have a form for disclosing the IDF, because the IDF is still something which is not in a condition that you can present to the patent office. It is still while you are in the IDF stage, you are still in the process of extracting the invention from the inventor. The problem solution statement is also a part of that process. The first claim that you draft, the preliminary draft of the main claim, is again a part of the process. So the patent office does not have any form for you to cover or for you to present the pre-work, something that went before the actual work, to the patent office. The patent office, the first thing the patent office requires from you is the full patent application and the complete specification or the provisional specification. So this course, as we have mentioned earlier, covers the process of drafting up until the point where you can be ready with a complete specification or a provisional specification and file it. It does not cover anything on what happens when it's ready, how to file it, how e-filing can be done, what is the form, what are the fees, structure. So the course only covers the pre-work part of it. Or if you want to put it in another way, the way in which the dish is prepared. When the dish is presented, you need the forms. Prior art search. The next question is on prior art search. Can an inventor submit the prior art search results with the IPO examiner by documenting the relevant prior arts in a form? A similar practice is seen in USPTO. In the Indian Patent Office, we don't do it in any particular form. What we do is, if the prior art is relevant, we present the prior art as a part of the specification. So it can be, you can draft the prior art into it. In fact, when we go through a sample after this session, in the second session, we will actually show you how a prior art can be drafted into a specification, and it's a part of a drafting technique, how to cover the prior art in a specification. We don't have a particular form for it, but if the examiner or the controller feels that certain prior arts are relevant, the prior art will be raised in the controller's report, what is called the first examination report. In the first examination report, the controller can raise objections, can raise prior art, and can ask questions on that, which the applicant or the inventor will have to answer. So what the inventor can submit is the prior art which is drafted into the specification, and we'll soon see a sample of how that can be done. The next question is on the nature of inventions. Can a simple, straightforward invention be patented? The answer is yes. Inventions as simple as a post-it or a Velcro were patented. It need not be anything complex. The requirement for you have seen examples of ballpoint pen, seen examples of paper clip. So anything can be patented. It's not the complexity that is involved that merits a patent, rather the fact that it satisfies the patentability criteria. All inventions, just to reiterate again, should satisfy conditions of patentability. It's not the complexity that is involved that is relevant, it is the patentability. Next question is on the problem solution statement or the problem solution approach, which we had discussed in the class. What is the best portion of the invention for writing a problem solution statement once it is derived from the IDF? Can it be a part of background, summary, or first introductory paragraph of written description? Now the questioner assumes that the problem solution statement can be culled out from the IDF. But the second part of the question says, can it be a part of the background, summary, or first introductory paragraph of a written description? Now let me answer this. The best part in where you can look for the problem solution statement in the IDF is the portion in the IDF where the inventor discusses about the problems in the prior art or the background of the invention. And the best part where you can look for the solution part of the problem solution statement is where the inventor has discussed the invention in a summary fashion, not into the details, in a summary fashion. Now, for us to give you a good hold of it, we'll be doing an analysis of a patent specification in the next session. As a part of this live cast, as I said, there are 3 sessions to this live cast. So those of whom who have joined in late, we are right now in the first session of the live cast. Soon after the first session, we'll have a second session where we will analyze a patent specification. There we are going to show you the portions of a specification which actually incorporated the problem solution statement. So to formulate a problem solution statement, as soon as you gather the information from the IDF, it will usually go into the background part. The problem will go into the background part, and the solution will go into the summary part. This is something which we had discussed in one of our lectures If you have any pertinent question on this, please raise a question on the forum. We will direct you to the particular lecture. The next question is on writing complete specification. Is one expected to know the complete operation of a product to describe the product with apt specifications in a patent application? Now I go back to the cooking example. How will you explain how a dish is done without actually knowing how it is done? You need to know everything if you have to write the recipe for it, isn't it? Similarly, if you are going to write a specification for a patent, you need to know every ingredient, every step, every masala that you add to it for you to be an expert to say that I know what has gone into this dish. I've written the recipe for this dish because I know the process involved in it. So if you are doing the job of an agent, you need to know the complete process. So you need to have complete knowledge of the product required and describe the enablement. We have seen it in our lectures that there is an enablement requirement, there is a requirement of disclosure, there is a requirement of definiteness in the claims, fair basis. All these things can be satisfied only if you have a complete knowledge of the operation. And how you get the complete knowledge of the operation of the invention is by getting a disclosure from the IDF. Sometimes the disclosure may not be sufficient. Then you will have to follow it up with some questions, what we call the interview. You have to interview the client and get these details out. The next question is on physical embodiment. Is physical embodiment an essential criteria required for filling up patent forms? Now, this question is quite broad. Now, we understand this as a physical embodiment which requires you to describe the physical embodiment in filling patent forms. Now, let me tell you that there is a Form 1 under the Patents Act, which is the form wherein you fill the patent application, where you have to say many things about your application, the inventor, number of inventors, whether it's a ordinary application, PCT, international application, the declaration on inventorship, many things are there. In Form 1, you also make a note on, or you make a declaration that you are in possession of the invention. If you look at Form 1 closely, you will find towards the end of the Form 1, there is a declaration where the applicants say that they are in possession of the invention. Now, what does possession mean? Possession means that you have put the invention to practice, and it also means that you have actually come up with the final version of the invention. This is not a requirement in drafting, but it's a requirement in a declaration that you make in a patent form, which is form number 1. So there is no need for you to present the physical embodiment, say take a working model and walk into the patent office. That's not required. But what is required from your end is to make a declaration stating that I am in possession of this invention. Now, that's one thing. Now, in certain inventions, the patent office may want you to produce a working model. For instance, you claim an invention which is capable of perpetual motion. And we understand that with little knowledge of physics, we know that perpetual motion cannot be achieved in the real world. Now, if you still insist, and if you want the patent office to grant you a patent covering a mission that is capable of perpetual motion, then the patent office very smartly will ask you to produce a mission that is capable of perpetual motion, and the mission or the model has to be worked before the patent office. So the patent office insists on working models in very rare cases. One case is where you claim something which is physically impossible. So normally there is no requirement for you to physical or to disclose the physical embodiment, because the physical embodiment will be covered in the claim, and you may have a dependent claim. We had covered this in the class. You may have a dependent claim to cover a particular physical embodiment. Say you have a commercial sale of your product. Your invention will be crafted, the main claim will be drafted in a very broad language. What we call, it will be elevated to the level of a concept and will be covered in your main claim. All the subsidiary claims, say the dependent claims, in one of the dependent claims you can cover the market embodiment or the embodiment that you are currently selling in the market, so that if there is an infringement, you can just direct to that claim and file a case before a court saying that this particular claim is being infringed apart from the main claim. So that's a technique which you have already discussed in the class. So no inventions should be perceived as a concept. This is from the drafting perspective. all that I have explained to you about possession and working model is when you get into the prosecution at the patent office. But from the drafting perspective, a physical embodiment need not be the foundation for drafting, because we want you to have a broader protection for your invention, for which you need to elevate the invention to the level of a concept. But as I mentioned, models may be submitted if they are requested for, and the request will come from the patent office. The next question is on claims. What is the total number of claims possible in an Indian patent application? You can file as many claims as you are willing to spend money on. There is no fixed number for the claims. There is a minimum number of 10 claims which your initial fee will cover. Depending on how many claims you have and how deep your pocket is, you can file any number of claims. There is absolutely no restriction on the claim, but understand you are charged per claim because claim involves extra work from the patent office. So anything over 10, you are charged extra. You want to have 100 claims, you will be charged extra. 1000, you will be charged extra. And we have a first schedule to the patent rules. You can check the first schedule to look at what will be the fee if you one fine day plan to file a patent with 1000 claims. You can check it out. International patents. The next question is, if I have a patent which let's say IPC, can someone file a patent with CPC that is borderline infringement on my patent? Now, people who have not followed this course closely will be like pulling their hair saying, what is this IPC, CPC? But let me just explain that. Now, IPC and CPC are classification codes. Any invention will fall under some category. Now, if it's a cricket bat, it falls under apparatus for playing a game. If it is a game board, it again falls under an apparatus. It falls under a broader classification. Now, students of science will know that every species belongs to a genus, and genus belongs to a family, and that belongs to finally to an animal kingdom itself. So you know the classification. Similarly, any invention can be put under a classification. So we have two codes, IPC and CPC, and the codes do nothing but they classify your invention. So if you go by the IPC code, it classifies your invention and gives you a code. The same invention would fall under the classification of a CPC code as well. Now, when we did the cricket bat example, we actually showed on the WIPO website how the IPC code and the CPC code are slightly different, but they both capture the invention. So the codes themselves, they are not offices or countries where patent application can be filed. Now, this point has to be very clear. IPC code or CPC code is not the office or the country where you file your patent. They are just codes to classify categories of invention. So if something falls within the IPC, most likely it will fall under the CPC as well, albeit under a different code. The next question is how to find inventor. Now, that's how we have titled it. The question is, several times in an organization for an invention, there can be n number of people who claim to be the inventor due to hierarchy or seniority. Now, in such cases, how to find that who is the true inventor? Further, is there any legal way to stop such people who put their names as inventor just because of seniority? Now, here is the hard truth. If you are working in a department and you really slog out and come out with an invention, and the head of the department claims it to be his invention, if he is not very generous. If he is generous, he will make you the co-inventor. Then come in terms with the fact that this is how most organizations work. Now, inventors cannot claim, very rarely we will find cases where inventors go and say that, my head of the department actually used my name. It is my invention. He used my invention and filed it in his name. Or if you are working for an organization or a company, very rarely will your rules of employment allow you to make a independent and an individual claim for something which is a part of a group. So how you claim a share in an inventorship will depend on the rules of your organization. It's as simple as that. Patent law does not get into that. If you want to have a 50-50 ratio with the two co-inventors, patent law is fine with that. If two inventors want to share it by 75-25, patent law is again fine with that. Because if you see the form, The forms do not ask for the ratio of ownership. The forms just ask for you to mention who is an inventor. Now, there could be a sad case where an inventor is not even mentioned. He contributed in a big way to the invention, but the seniors took the credit. Patent law does not interfere here. Patent law just goes by the disclosure made by the applicant. So, the inventor's name or the names of the inventors are disclosed in Form 1. So, who files Form 1? Before filing Form 1, what is the rules of employment? If you came and worked as a part of the team, what were the rules of associations that were in the team? All these things are extraneous to the patent law. The patent law is not interested in this. They just want you to make a disclosure. But assume that a disclosure is made and somebody files a patent and you realize that the patent actually, the invention actually belonged to you and somebody took it away from your team. There was a team A and team B was not actually involved in the invention, but team B took the credit. Then it becomes a legal dispute. And to resolve legal disputes on inventorship, there are two mechanisms. You can either go to the intellectual property office, the patent office has its own mechanism, or you can go to the courts. The next question is on novelty. There are a lot of patent applications where novelty mentioned in an application can be easily seen as obvious and in some cases in naivety rather than novelty. Is the novelty factor entirely dependent on quality of English in inverted quotes used and the mannerisms of presentation in inverted quotes in the application? Now, I've told you I've not edited the questions. I've presented them as they are. Now, novelty is determined by prior art search. And I'm of the opinion that a good prior art search where equivalents are searched can get over a cover up by using better language and smarter presentation. So if you want to present something in a better language or you want to your manner of presentation, you will still be caught if you do a good novelty search, if you do a good prior art search. And a good prior art search, which we had covered in our classes, is done using the classification codes, the IPC and the CPC codes. And when you do a classification code search, and we have covered this in detail, it's quite unlikely that somebody can get over by just changing words or by changing the manner of presentation. I mean, we have a system which has worked for more than 100 years wherein the patent office is able to pick up quality of English issues and mannerism of presentation issues. The next question is on the title. Can there be a change to the title of the invention as filed in provisional? If yes, then could the applicant change it anytime or only the patent office had the right to change according to changes in specification? Now, this is not something this is completely out of syllabus. We only tell you how to draft a title, but there is a provision to change the title. A title forms a part of the specification. Parts of the specification can be amended under section 58 of the Act. Yes, the title can be amended. Now, this is the last question that we have on drafting patents. What could be a good approach towards drafting a patent? Whether we should start writing specifications, draw first, or start with claims. The Bajaj patent mentions apparatus with the help of drawing in a claim like engine in bracket 22. Is it mandatory in Indian Patent Office to denote parts in the claim? Now, the gist of the course is that we have covered a methodology which is to start with the problem solution statement, move to the primary claim, and then complete the description. So we advocate the approach of starting with the claim, but we also have some work that you need to do before you start with the claim. That is to draft the problem solution statement. Now, so in that order we recommend things, and there are others who recommend different orders, but it's a choice of style and choice of how you want to approach the work. To answer the second part of the question, yes, parts need to be denoted in parentheses. This is a requirement under Rule 13 of the patent rules. Now that concludes our first session. I hope people are asking questions. Please be active on the forum. We will now just transpose the questions onto a Google document where you can see it, and I'll try to answer it at the end of session 3. So session 1 just got over and it took us close to half an hour. Now let's move to session 2. Welcome back. Now we start session 2 of our live cast. I have some good news for you. People have been active on the forum. We have close to 30 questions. Let's see how we can accommodate it. If you are not able to answer it in this session, rely on us. We will be answering them in the forum, but I'll try my best to take them up here. So we had initially planned this session for 1 hour, but we may stretch it till we need to answer all your questions. Okay, in session 2, we will be looking at a specification. This is a very interesting patent. The patent is titled Lubricated Catheter Balloon. Okay, that's the title. You can see the title here, Lubricated Catheter Balloon. Now, we will just quickly take you through this because we have already done one analysis of a specification. This analysis is done so that you understand which part of the patent drafting gets into which part of the specification. We had seen problem solution statement, we had seen drawings, we had seen a brief description, summary, all these things we had seen. The analysis will help you to understand what gets into which part. Now, abstract. Now you had seen that it's a very short abstract. A dilation balloon comprising an inner surface and an outer surface. The inner surface having lubricious material disposed thereon to reduce friction or to prevent adherence to adjacent layers and thus reduce the pressure required for inflation. So there is a lubricant on the inner surface. Now what is a catheter? Now some of you may, these are just drawings, we'll skip the drawings. Now the first highlight, under background of invention, medical balloon catheters having a dilatation balloon located at their distal ends are used surgically for insertion into blood vessels, a urethra or body conduits for the purpose of reducing stenosis or blockages. Essentially, if you have a blood vessel or something blocked, you can send a catheter and you can unblock it. I mean, if you, any one of you is aware of angioplasty and angiogram is done by this process. So you can, in an angioplasty, you can actually send a catheter and also a stent. Quite a lot of possibilities are there. So normally a catheter is used to send inside the human body to unblock a blood vessel, largely the use. Now, I have highlighted two things beneath it, CLR with an R in a circle and Hytrel. Now, these are trademarks. Now, trademarks can be used in the descriptive part of your specification. You would not use trademarks in the claim. This is a point which we had covered in the class. Now, if you read down, now this is a document, you can note the number, patent, US patent number 6444324 and download it and read it at your leisure. Now, what we have done here is we have highlighted what were the issues that would amount to a problem. Now, you can look for the problem in the background of the invention. Now, we have just highlighted some aspects of the problem solved by the invention. One is such material not typically by themselves lubricious in nature. So, they referred to something that existed in the prior art and they said it is not lubricious or coated with a lubricant in nature. Second, it is very difficult and in fact almost impossible to do so without having portions stick to each other and possibly tearing the substrate, particularly in the absence of a lubricious coating. Again, it brings out a problem in the prior art. Now, if using for stent delivery, it will need extra pressure to expand the stent and release it. Again, a problem in the prior art. Now, the method of overcoming is mentioned. One method of overcoming is mentioned, and it is also mentioned, however, coating the outside surface not only addresses the half of the balloon surface for this, but also may lead to what is referred to in the art as watermelon seeding. Now, watermelon seeding is nothing but the balloon collapsing, the balloon just collapsing. I mean, if you read this, you will find that. Now, therefore, it is necessary to have an expansion or contraction without slippage. So, the balloon when it collapses, it slips. So, to prevent that, a solution has to be devised. And the patent specification goes on to explain US patent number 5503631. Normally, when we refer to a number, we just refer to the last three digits. So, 631 gives one solution. There is another method in 467. There is another issue with regard to the lubricant utilized in the outside of the balloon is hydrophobic, how it reacts to water. Now, all these issues are mentioned, and there is also another patent that is mentioned, patent 899. Again, a prior art is mentioned. Now, what this does, it presents a problem and it presents all the existing solutions to the problem, and it also says that the existing solutions are not satisfactory. Now comes the summary of the invention. So, what you cover in the background part is essentially the problem and attempts to solve the problem, and the fact that the attempts are not perfect or there is still scope for improvement. Then in the summary part, you mention your invention. So, if you see the highlighted part, method of coating an inner surface of a dilatation balloon used with a catheter device with a lubricant in order to overcome friction between surfaces in contact with one another and to consequently reduce the opening pressure required to inflate the balloon. We had already mentioned in our class, the first sentence of your summary has to be the broadest sentence capturing every aspect of the invention. It need not capture the problem. In fact, the problem is mentioned in the next statement. This can also avoid the problem of watermelon seeding. So, what is mentioned here in the first part of the summary, or the first sentence in the summary, is the solution followed by the problem. The problem in the art is mentioned in the background of the invention. Okay, now let's quickly go through the remaining parts of the specification. Now we come to the claims. Now the claims, all you need to know is the claims we have mentioned. There is a preamble, a transition, and a body. The transition is highlighted in yellow in claim 1. What is before the transition is the preamble, and what is after the transition is the body. Now you can read it. I've just highlighted the different types of transition. In claim 2 is a dependent claim because it refers to claim 1, and the transition used is wherein. Now when you use wherein, you normally get into the detail of something which you have already mentioned. Okay, the dilatation balloon is already mentioned, wherein said balloon comprises a thermoplastic polymeric material. So you know that wherein is going to give you some detail about what is already covered. Okay, so comprising enumerates the parts or the elements, whereas wherein brings some additional information about what you have already covered. Now again, in 5 you have comprising, having, and comprising. Look at this sequence. A dilatation balloon comprising an inner surface and an outer surface. Now that's complete. Said inner surface, that's the second clause. Having, again that further splits a lubricious material comprising. The lubricious material is further described with the word comprising. So you can see in a tapering way how one leads to another. First, comprising leads to 2 parts. Said inner surface having mentions the first part. Lubricious material comprising gives detail about the lubricious material. So it is in a, what you call it, it's as we go down, the detail keeps increasing, or rather you can say the claim becomes narrower and narrower with every transition. Now 6, you have a wherein followed by a comprises transition. Now bear in mind, when we use a comprises transition, it is different from a comprising transition. The comprising is what we refer to as an open-ended. When you say comprises, it's it. There's nothing more to it. So if you want to close the loop, then you use a comprises language. Then 7 is wherein, 8 again wherein, 9, 10. So you will see that wherever wherein is used, it's a dependent claim. You can actually see that. 14 again, it's a combination of comprising and having. And 20 again wherein 22 a combination of comprising and wherein comprising an inner surface wherein the inner surface has at least the components are mentioned. So you can see the way in which the transitions are used. Dilation, the last one, it's a comprising claim. Okay, that brings us to the end of our second session, and in the next session, the third session, we will look at the exercise workbook. The workbook which we will be sharing with you so that you can put all the things that you have learned in the lectures into practice. Welcome back. We are in the third session of our live streaming. You are watching the live streaming from the Patent Drafting for Beginners course from NPTEL, and this is being lively streamed from IIT Madras, and I'm Professor Feroz. Now, this is the workbook to which we will be sharing a link with you. This essentially is a patent drafting workbook which allows you to test all the things that you learned in class. Now, we have what is here, a pencil and an eraser. That's the problem. You have to fill the inventive concept. What is the inventive concept behind it? So inventive concept is not the physical embodiment. It is something which is all comprehensive concept which covers the entire invention. So it's a broad level concept about which we had discussed. Then you'll have to draft a problem solution statement and then claims. So when we ask you to draft the claims, you should at least have a set of a minimum of 3 claims: an independent claim, a dependent claim, and another dependent claim, so that we understand, so that you know how these things work, how the claims can be structured, how they can be ordered. So this, you may ask, how do we do this? You do this by reading this excerpt. So we have given you an excerpt and a drawing. Based on this, you need to do this exercise. So similarly, this is something which we have covered in class. The combination pen, again you can take a shot at drafting the claims for it. Then we have a toilet article. Again, we want you to come up with the inventive concept, problem solution statement, and claims by reading this excerpt. Again, there's a drawing next to it, along with it. Now, bottle sealing device, same thing. There's an inventive concept, there is a claim, and an excerpt. You read the excerpt and try to create the fill in the remaining, and you have drawings to help you also. There is a window cleaning device. Now, I will quickly take you through it. Okay, there's a drawing to it. Now we have a paper clip. Again, you have to come up with the problem solution statement, claims, and there is an excerpt and production of ammonia. You have to read this excerpt and come up with a claim. Lubricated catheter balloon, which we had just seen, but though you have seen the claim, you could still try your hands on it. Okay, and here is the illustration and the description. So what you are essentially doing, I know it's a tough thing to do because the description is very short, and so but you can let your imagination run wild. The point is whether you are able to identify the inventive concept, whether you are able to see the problem solution statement, and whether you are able to create a working claim or draft a basic claim. So that's the objective. So keep the objective in mind. Even if you don't have enough information to do it, I would suggest that you go ahead with this. A rocket apparatus. Rocket apparatus will have an excerpt, and you can look at the excerpt and do it. Now, lubrication of two-stroke internal combustion engine. Again, there are three things that we want you to fill after looking into this. And a method of preparing food. Looks like that's the last invention. Yeah. Now, we'll be sharing this on our forum. So please download it and go through this. If you need another session, we can have another live session on another day, wherein I can explain this, and if you have any further questions on the forum, I can also answer that. So the next live session is completely dependent on the interest that you show. If you find that this needs to be discussed in detail, and if there are enough requests, I can't say Facebook likes, but if there are enough requests, then we would probably take this up and do it in a separate live session, which will be informed in advance. So this was the session 3, which we have now covered. Now let us look at the questions that you have raised. Okay, now we have the questions here, and it's just what was put on the forum. We have just cut and pasted it here with your names next to it. Chandana has raised this question: what can be one-shot SOP for taking a patent to commercialization once filed, especially for academic-oriented patents in universities? Now, anything that is not on drafting, we will keep it, we will answer it later, because this is a live session. So I would want to concentrate on the questions pertaining to the course. So let's move to the drafting related questions. So the next question is by Shiv Shankar. We have to draft a claim in such a way that the product process that we claim is novel to clear the statutory requirement. Keeping this in mind, when an independent claim is drafted, can it be read with dependent claims to establish novelty, or that the independent claim should itself be sufficient to establish novelty? The independent claim should itself demonstrate novelty, because the independent claim is what should stand a scrutiny on its own. So independent, we call it independent, it need not need any support. So the moment you say that something has to be read together for it to make sense, or even to analyze novelty or inventive step, then it defeats the purpose. So it has to stand on its own. When giving a range, say for temperature or pH, what should be the criteria to present such information in the claim part? Mainly for a process claim, such parameters have been defined, so it is generally required to test the process for both the range limits. Now, if I understand this question correctly, now you would arrange, so the question of range is completely based on what the prior art has done. If the prior art has not done anything at all, you can claim any range. I mean, it's like, it's like you are the first person there in the domain and you can claim anything. Now, if the prior art is already populated, then the prior art will not allow you to claim something as unique. So, mentioning a range will depend on what is the technology you are dealing with and whether the technology allows you to, the prior art allows you to do that, and more importantly, will you achieve that particular result in claiming. Now, if I cannot make a claim that the water will boil between 50 degrees centigrade and 120. No, I have to be precise, because where water starts boiling has to be mentioned clearly. So, your technology or your field will determine what range you are going to claim. So, it's generally required to test the process. Yes, you have to test the process. It is required because we know that there is a requirement in the claim that it should enable a person to work the invention. Because you have the enablement requirement, you cannot put a claim which looks fantastic on paper, or to say that, okay, I would like to claim much broader than what it really is. So, we had covered this in the class on enablement, that you can only claim what you have enabled. Sorry. I enjoy learning the drafting code. My question is, if I get okay, any question that is related to something other than the patent drafting course, the syllabus of the course, we would love to answer it. We will answer it, but not in a live telecast of this nature. So, I will skip all the questions. So, I am not even going to read the questions aloud. I would rather read it first and then come to it. Okay. Rohit Singh asked, generally the body elements in the claim are separated by the semicolon. But one of the claim that we have seen in United States in claims, they have used both the semicolon and the colon. I would like to know if that is correct. I would also like to know, Rohit, whether that is correct or whether it's a typo. It will be nice if you can show it to us, pass it on to us. We would like to see, because if the sentence allows it to do, I'm still not sure whether the English punctuation will allow you to do that, but I would like to see before I can give you a comment on that. Okay, Swati asks, how can we practice patent drafting? How a lawyer can contribute to patent drafting applications in a better way? Okay, excellent question. Now, how you practice drafting is by doing more of it. How do you practice writing poetry? By writing more of poetry. How do you practice writing short stories? By writing more of short stories. Now, to do that, you should read quite a lot of short stories, quite a lot of poems, and by the same logic, you should read quite a lot of patent specifications. Now, if you want to really take drafting seriously as a career option, then you should be reading patent specifications left, right, and center. You should be reading, because the style is in those documents. So, if you want to pick up a style, pick up a particular way to use something, you are going to pick it up by reading more of it. There is no shortcut. So, the only way you can practice drafting is by reading more and more of specification and trying your hand out in drafting. And what we have given circulated, the patent drafting workbook, is an excellent place to start your drafting exercises. Does the Indian law on patents require any technical formalities to as that of foreign laws? Sorry, Vikas, the question needs some more details for me to understand it well. If you can supply those details, I can answer your question. Okay, Viraj asked this question. Can you please explain commercial embodiment again? Now, commercial embodiment is, if let us take the Bajaj invention, the twin spark plug embodiment. Now, assume that there was one. The main claim was for two spark plugs placed opposite to each other. Just assume that the main claim, the main claim was only for the use of two spark plugs without any detail as to how they are placed. Now, in the process of manufacturing, though the claim covers 2 spark plugs without telling how they are placed, in the process of manufacturing, Bajaj actually finds a difficulty in placing the spark plugs opposite to each other. So what they do, because the engine and there are so many other things in the motorcycle, they place both the spark plugs next to each other. So while filing a patent, Bajaj will file a main claim without any restriction on the placement of spark plugs. It will just say 2 spark plugs. You could place it anywhere. But Bajaj, because it has a commercial embodiment, which is the bikes with that engine which are being sold in the market, Discover or Pulsar or whatever you call it, you would now want a claim to cover your commercial embodiment because you don't want TVS or others to be using it. And if TVS or others or Honda is going to use it, you can now say that I have a dependent claim which covers my commercial embodiment, which is placing 2 spark plugs close to each other because the design does not permit me to place it opposite to each other for whatever reason. So if you have a commercial embodiment covered in a claim, when you approach the court, it is much easier for you because you already have covered the embodiment. So Bajaj would, in that case, would say that my claim 1 is infringed along with claim 3. Say 3 covers the placement of spark plugs next to each other. In that case, it will say it covers 1 and 3. So the advantage of covering an embodiment, a commercial embodiment, is that the commercial embodiment will allow you tomorrow when you are enforcing the patent to raise a dispute and say that my commercial embodiment is covered in claim 3, which you would not do if you have not claimed the commercial embodiment. So it's good practice that you have your main claim at the concept level, at a high level, and you further have claims or what we call dependent claims which covers a commercial embodiment. In short, commercial embodiment refers to that part of your invention or that variation or that version of that invention which you are selling in the market. All questions on application of patents are, I'm sorry, it's out of syllabus. We have another course running in parallel. Please raise these questions there if you are already enrolled for that course, and we could have a live session in that course as well. So please please post your questions there, but we will try to answer them in some place or the other. Tachani has a question. It was told in the lecture that the claims are traditionally written in a single sentence. Tachani, you were told the truth. Yes, they are still written in this, not just traditionally, they are still written in a single sentence. Does it mean that it can be written otherwise also in more than one sentence, or is there a rule to be followed? It is a rule to be followed, though I cannot point you which rule in the patent rules, but if you look at the manual, the patent office has a manual which is called the patent office manual. The manual says the sentence has to be in a single sentence. So there are certain things that are a part of the act, there are certain things that are contained in the rules, there are certain things that are done by convention. But conventionally it is done as a single sentence, and that is, you will find that captured in the manual. Patent office manual has the manual says that it has to be in one sentence. Okay, all the questions on which are outside the syllabus, because we have a parallel course running which is on patent law for engineers and scientists, and I would, if you are already enrolled for that course, I would want you to raise these questions there. It will definitely benefit the right audience if I answer them as well. How to search the exact number of claims in granted or published patent. Now, we have shown you how to look for the claims part in the Indian Patent Office, and you can easily find that in the if you do a search on USPTO, that's the United States Patent Office, or a Google patent search. Google has a patents database. Patents.google.com is the database of patents. You will find the claims at the end of the document, and they are numbered in sequence. So you will find the exact number once you get the complete specification. How to draft claims with IF condition. Can you please explain what IF stands for? Ramakrishnan has asked it. What does IF stand for? Okay, Manish asked this question. Can you please upload 2 or 3 case studies slowly explaining the drafting a patent step by step for beginners to learn from the video tutorial? It will be a great help. Okay, see, Manish, you have to do the course. There is no one case study that we can show it, because as people who have done this course would have understood, it requires quite a lot of principles. It requires you to do quite a lot of reading, and only then we can do this demonstration. For now, I have circulated a drafting workbook, and if you have followed the course and if you have done all the video lectures, you should be knowing how to fill, or at least how to complete the workbook. If you can do the workbook, you are much closer to drafting a specification on your own. I'm at a loss because I cannot. This is a course which has taken more than 7 hours of lectures, so it cannot be done in a step-by-step process, because for me to even do the drafting, I need to show you at least an IDF, or I need to show the background information based on which I'm doing the drafting. Drought in transition word. Priya has this question, whether it should be consists or consisting, of which limits the scope. See, you could as we just showed in the example of comprising and comprises, if you are going to close a loop, you can use comprises. Similarly, consists. If you are going to keep it open, then you would say consisting. So when you use consisting, then you will normally use having as a follow-up transition and as a wherein as a follow-up transition. If you are not going to do any further transitions, then you would do consists. So if you are not going to do any further transition, you would do comprises. So this we have just explained in the earlier analysis in session 2. Today we had already explained that. ING is required to keep it in the working form. So ING is the most preferred way to do it, and ING is the way in which the language is kept in a way in which you can open it for other things. So you say comprising, you can follow it up with a having if necessary, and you can also bring in the wherein part. So if you want to use multiple transitions in the same claim, you will use ING, and if you see practice, ING is the most common form used. We have not covered means plus function in our course. It will require quite a lot of explanation for us to do. So we have just said that there could be a means of doing a particular thing followed by a function. For instance, if you say a heater for heating, so that is the means, a means for heating, wherein the object is heated at this temperature. So that is a means plus function clause rather than a claim in itself. And it just says complexity about means. I mean, you just made a passing statement, and Harish, and if it's a pertinent question, I need more information to answer that. Okay, there is a question from Priyanka. While drafting a patent, if it's not funded by agencies, institutes, organizations, how can we go about in such a case? How can we go about what, Priyanka? Can you just explain that? Can we instead process patent application as product patent, need fund? See, these are subject matters which we have not covered in our class. the choice between filing a process patent and a product patent. That's covered in a different course. The name of the course is Patent Law for Engineers and Scientists. I hope you have enrolled for that course, and if we need to have a live session there, we could have that as well. But this there is no whether you file something as a product or a process is a strategy. There's no drafting technique involved there, which we have not which we have covered in our lessons. Yeah, this again, Priyanka, we had covered it. The transition comprising can be open-ended, consists or consists of can be close-ended. So normally in chemical inventions you'll see consists of, because the chemical compound only consists of that and nothing more. So close-ended in that way you can use this transition. Yes, we have covered it in our lecture. You have just mentioned it. It's easy for me to see a question when I see a question mark. So when you say certain things without framing a proper question, I find it hard to understand what the question is. I may sometimes feel that it's a comment and I may just go ahead. Again, the questions on time for grant and norms for, they are simply beyond this course. I'm just concentrating on, there are many questions, so I'm just concentrating on the ones that are relevant to the course. Okay, prosecution, information on prosecution history, estoppel in India, doctrine of equivalence, Festo case. As I'm not able to grasp the content from the net, can you please provide information in simple terms? Also, please give guidance on jobs in patent drafting. Okay, fine. Okay. Career advice will be done through the forum or through other channels that we have. But right now, I want to tell you that Festo case and estoppel and doctrine of equivalence, there is some material on the internet. We will make a note of this in the forum, and we will give you the links so that you can get more information on this. Bessie asks, can we have some drafting exercises, please? Bessie, before you ask the question, I've already shared my workbook. The link to the workbook will appear in the forum. So that will be your drafting exercise. And if you want to, as I've already mentioned, the more patterns you read and the more attempts you do in drafting, just reading, all you need to do is just cover the claims, read the specification, and try to draft your own claims. That can be done on your own. There's a question on basics of drafting. I don't know what the question is, but it was just mentioned. I'm just giving you a chance to clarify a question. I need some statement with the question tag at the end so that I know that's a question. How to search the exact number of claims in published. There's a video lecture on it. Please go back and see it. How to do it on India. There are lectures on search. Please watch the video. The difference between consists and consisting and ing, we have already covered that. If you missed it, you can see the recording of this video. We have already covered. Again, there is a query on doctrine of equivalent, prosecution, history, estoppel. Don't worry about Wikipedia. We will send the link to something which is more concrete. So we will be sending the links to prosecution, history, estoppel, the doctrine of equivalent, and the Festo case. But we won't be sending you Wikipedia. We understand that you have a difficulty in grasping the content in Wikipedia, because Wikipedia can be edited by multiple people, so many a times the flow may not be there. So what we would do is we will send you other material, links on the internet, so that you can follow it up. So we will be posting, this question has come repeatedly, prosecution history, estoppel, doctrine of equivalent, and Festo case. We'll be posting links which you can read and understand. We'll also be sending the link to the patent drafting workbook. Again, matters that are beyond the lectures or the syllabus of this course, I'm not going to take them now, but I'm not saying I won't answer them. We will answer them. We have a WhatsApp forum in which people actively ask questions. We can add you there. We have beyond this course, we have a Facebook page. which will continue even beyond this course. So we can answer questions which are outside the syllabus. The Facebook link, we have circulated this Facebook link. The page is there in the forum. So once you get there and ask the questions there, we can answer it there. Again, we are only concentrating on questions on drafting right now. Okay, what is the most, Madhu asked this question, what is the most important skill required to draft patents application except that spectacular language and associated techniques, and how to write how the writing skill should be developed? Now, you don't need a spectacular language skill or a vocabulary which is like Shashi Tharoor's. There is quite a lot of following on Twitter on the word the MP Mr. Shashi Tharoor uses. So I like some of the words he uses as well. So you don't need that kind of a vocabulary. If you have a tool which is like a thesaurus and a good dictionary and a domain dictionary. There are some dictionary on chemical terms, dictionary on biological terms, dictionary on biotechnology. If you have a domain dictionary and if you have a thesaurus and if you have a normal dictionary, you have all the tools that you require. Now, what you require is more of a dedication and steady practice in doing the art. You will get better over time. So the most important skill is your ability to read many specifications, quite a lot of them, and repeatedly try your drafting by, as I said, all you need to do is download a specification, cover the claims or remove the claims, or ask your friend to just edit the claims, cover it up, Photoshop it, whatever, and you just read the specification and try to draft your own claims. So for that, you will have to have an input of reading quite a lot of claims. So if you read a lot of claims, which is reading quite a lot of specifications, which I understand is a boring job for the uninitiated, but you are all dedicated people who have done this course, so you can always do that. So you would expose yourself to reading more specifications and domain knowledge in that particular area. Say if you are in biotechnology, you will be reading much stuff on biotechnology and acquaint yourself with the technology so that drafting comes to you easily. Now, Manish asked this question, comprising, consisting. We have already answered that. There's a question on forms. We will not deal with that now. It's out of syllabus. If we have another course, I will end up repeating myself in many places. Professors do that all the time, but let me try to avoid it here. Okay, can a person who drafts a patent on behalf of an inventor file a request for examination? Request for examination can be filed by an interested person and by the applicant. Okay, legal assignee and all are things, because if I take and answer a question that is out of syllabus, I will be unnecessarily confusing people who have followed the course. They may get an impression that I actually covered it and I'm explaining here. That's the most important reason why I am not answering questions that are out of syllabus. I would love to do it. We can do it in another time. Probably if you have a request, post it on our Facebook page. We will take it up and answer it in another live session if you want it. Can we patent an idea for which a prototype is half completed? Again, that's a strategy part. If you are reasonably sure that your half completed prototype will eventually lead to a full prototype, then you may do that. That's a short answer. Amit had asked that question. Kumuta has this question, whether claims can be written under provisional or complete. Claims are not mandatory for the provisional, but if you want to file a provisional with the claims, again it's your call, but claims are a must when you file a complete. So I will put it this way, claims are optional in a provisional. The idea of a provisional is to make the disclosure and file it quickly. If you get into claim drafting, it is time consuming, as you all would have figured it now. So the best way to file a provisional is without the claims. Can I attach simulation results in your patent specification? Yes, but in some kind of a pictorial representation. You can have graphs, you can have charts. There are quite a lot of things you can include in the drawings, and if it is relevant, whatever you include needs to be described as well. So that brings us to the end. We have completed all the questions. If you have any further questions, I would assume that you would have raised it in the forum. So any follow up on this, you could again raise the questions in the forum. For now, we have gone beyond the time that was allocated. We will just conclude this live cast. If you need another live cast like this, say for instance you want to analyze how the workbook can be done, again that will involve, I would, if you make that request, I'm going to ask you all to submit the completed workbooks, and only then we will proceed with that. So that's one requirement I would want you to do. You can complete the workbook in a way you find it and send it to us. You have our contact details, and then we could have a live session on the workbook if it is necessary. So I completely go by what you will now request for. Now with the end of this week, we will not have classes because the course is over, but the exams are in April. But nothing stops us from having more live sessions like this. So that is completely based on your interest, the questions you ask, and the level at which you want to involve and participate in this course. So thank you for being there. Till next time, bye-bye.